As language learners, we often receive feedback on our writing, and we may occasionally struggle with how to make revisions to improve our grammar and vocabulary or word choice. In this video, I'm going to introduce a tool you can use when writing, Wordandphrase.info. For now, this tool is only available online and is best accessed with a laptop. Wordandphrase is a powerful combination of dictionary, thesaurus, collocations dictionary, and concordancer. This means that you will be able to find definitions, synonyms, collocations, and examples of the word in context. You will also be able to find out a little about how frequently the word occurs in different genres. It is relatively straightforward to use, but a brief tutorial will be useful because there is a lot going on in the interface. Some of what you see in this video will be familiar to you if you have watched my Using Wordandphrase.info for Reading video, but I have done my best not to repeat myself too much. For example, when I review how to use a particular search function, I will use a new example. Okay, now let's get started. You can access the site by typing www.wordandphrase.info in your browser. On the landing page, you will see the creator's name, Mark Davies, the university that hosts the site, BYU, and the corpus that is used, COCA, or the Corpus of Contemporary American English. A corpus is a large collection of texts that can be searched and analyzed. COCA contains 560 million words and includes academic texts, fiction, news, spoken language, and popular magazines. However, it is important to note that the default setting for Wordandphrase is to display results from 120 million words of academic texts. You will also see two options. The first is frequency list, and the second is input text. We will click on input text because this is the option that will provide us with the most useful information for our purposes. One of the great things about this tool is that you can enter an entire passage or article into the search box and explore the words and phrases of the text without having to go back and forth between your text and the search box. Let's see how this works. For this video, I will be using examples from real student writing. Instead of copying the entire paper and entering that, let's just copy the paragraph we are interested in working on and then go ahead and paste it into the search box and click Search. What you see is that Wordandphrase has processed the text you entered, in this case a paragraph from a student's draft research paper, and provided you with some information about the vocabulary in the text and a clickable version. At the top, you will see a chart with different frequency ranges and the percentage of words from the text that fall into each of those categories. Basically, this chart is showing you what percentage of the words in the text are high frequency, mid frequency, and lower frequency. For example, in this text you will see that 70% are high frequency words, one of the 500 most frequently used words in COCA, and 30% are lower frequency, not in the top 3,000 words. To see a list of these words broken down into their frequency ranges, click See Lists. As you use this tool regularly, you can pay attention and compare your use of vocabulary to samples of text written in academic journal articles. One of the things I have found students are surprised by is the high percentage of high-frequency words used in a lot of academic writing, around 50% in some of the articles we read in my graduate research course. This, of course, varies by the discipline and the type of journal the article is found in. However, paying attention to these numbers will allow you to understand that although it is important to gain control over some lower frequency words, especially those common in your discipline, it is crucial to have excellent control over high frequency and mid frequency words to communicate your ideas. This means not just knowing how to use the word in one or two contexts or collocations, but knowing how to use it in a range of contexts with numerous collocations. Of course, some language learners will also benefit from noticing that their writing often includes even more high-frequency words and fewer mid-frequency words than is common in academic writing. Using the color coding, you can explore the high-frequency words and work to make other choices that may improve the academic tone of your writing. In addition to exploring the frequency of your word choices and their appropriateness for academic writing, you can also use it to help you address feedback you receive from your professor. Let's look at the same example from a recent student paper. This student was exploring the possible benefits of digital illustration for education. This is a paragraph from his introduction. What I'm going to do is point out a few word choices that I would have given feedback on, and how this student could have used wordandphrase.info to improve this paragraph. First, let's look at some of the word choice issues I highlighted. It is important to note that the author's meanings were mostly clear. However, some word and phrase choices are not common in academic writing, or the particular field in which he is writing, and others are not common in English at all. Because of these issues, the paragraph reads awkwardly at times and is less precise than it could be. Luckily, word and phrase is a tool we can use to make more appropriate choices, reduce awkwardness, and increase precision. Okay, let's get started. First, let's change our search option to phrase and click search. This gives us the phrase boxes here. Looking at the feedback, I want to point out that there are other issues I would give feedback on in this paragraph, but in this video I will discuss only the word choice issues that are highlighted here. In some cases, your professor may indicate a word choice issue with a note, a symbol, or abbreviation like WC, or a comment. In order to address the first issue, the chance to improve, let's click on each word in the phrase, which automatically fills up those phrase boxes. Next, let's click on chance and synonyms, and then improve and synonyms. You'll notice that quotation marks are added to those words, which will result in word and phrase searching for phrases with the, synonyms of chance, to, and synonyms of improve. Now, why did I only click on synonyms for chance and improve? Well, because it is often more effective with this search to focus on content words such as nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Another reason is that in this case it preserves the grammatical structure by leaving the article and the to part of the infinitive. So let's go with this. Okay, so I want to draw your attention to a couple of things you will see in the results. First, you will see a frequency chart. This isn't all that helpful because it includes all of the related phrases in the results below. But it does tell us that we do have some options that occur in academic writing, which is good. Next, in the list of phrases, be sure to notice that genre frequencies are provided for each individual phrase. This will help us quickly identify those phrases that are likely to be appropriate for academic writing. Those phrases with higher relative frequencies are also color-coded in darker shades of blue, making it even easier to quickly scan the results. The original phrase is highlighted in yellow if there are examples of it in the corpus. So in this case, we can see a couple of things right away. First, we can see that the chance to improve is only found a few times in the corpus and only once in the academic genre. The other thing that we can see is that there seems to be a strong alternative that is used frequently in academic writing: the opportunity to develop. If we would like, we could also click on the number in the frequency chart to see concordance lines or examples from the corpus. This additional exploration could help us decide on a choice. Based on my understanding of the intended meaning, I think we can be happy with this revision. Next, let's clear the search box and click on the next phrase highlighted in the feedback: their learning advance. Again, let's try just looking for phrases with synonyms of the content words, learning and advance. With this example, we have slightly different looking results. First, we do not see any examples of the original phrase in the corpus. That usually means we are correct in looking for alternative word choices. Next, we see several phrases that include dashes. What this indicates is that their learning, or their knowledge, may be synonymous with their learning advance, meaning that we may be able to express the idea with one fewer word. Here is where some judgment is required. I can imagine this student responding to this possible revision by saying, "But Brandon, I want to emphasize or make clear that their learning is advancing or growing. I have to keep that word." what I would tell that student is to really examine that sentence and reconsider how necessary that word is. For example, earlier in this sentence he writes about increasing. Doesn't this already communicate what he intended? As you can see, searching with word and phrase can also help catch repetitiveness. And just as with the previous example, if we wish to check the examples from the corpus, we can click on the frequency chart to see concordance lines. Okay, one last thing about these results. You may notice that there are only a few examples in the corpus. This does not mean that these are not appropriate choices, but it does mean that we may want to challenge ourselves to rethink a sentence. But for now, let's say that we want to keep with our original word choice learning, and simply delete the word advance to complete our revision. Alright, one last example. Good influence. Before going straight to clicking on only the highlighted or marked words, it's always a good idea to take a look at the context of the word. We may choose to add additional words to our search phrase in order to get something closer to our intended meaning and something that fits grammatically in our sentence. In this case, you'll notice that good influence is preceded by a verb, have. So, instead of searching for just a simple noun phrase, we'll add have to our search. Let's go ahead and clear our previous results and click on each word in the phrase. We will then keep have in its original form, but search for synonyms of good and influence. So let's click good and synonym, and influence and synonym, and then click search. Remember, the first thing we might want to look for is whether or not we see our original phrase highlighted in yellow. In this case, we do not, so again, we can confirm that this is a phrase we should likely find a way to revise. Now, in our results, we can find several phrases that occur multiple times in academic writing. We can scan the results to explore a few possibilities. Right away, the second result looks promising. Beneficial effects. It keeps the original grammatical structure of the phrase, but replaces good influence with a noun phrase that is a stronger collocation, meaning that the two words, an adjective and a noun in this case, occur somewhat regularly together, and also occur somewhat regularly with the verb have. Again, we can click on the phrase to look at some concordance lines. Based on a quick scan, you may notice that this phrase does seem to fit the intended meaning of the author and looks like a strong choice. One thing we should make a note of, since we are considering this phrase, is that the preposition that frequently follows the phrase is on, not for, which is the preposition used in the original text. So, if we select this phrase, then we need to make sure and adjust our preposition as well. Okay, so this looks good, but for the sake of exploration, let's look at one more choice a student might be drawn to. Going down our list, we can see have greater influence. Okay, so this might seem like a comfortable choice if the student was quickly trying to make revisions on their paper before moving on to other things in their busy schedule. He might say, okay, there is an option that is not that different from the original, let me just go with that. But always be careful to make sure that you are not changing the meaning of your sentence unless you plan on making changes elsewhere. For example, if the student was to change the phrase to have greater influence, then the new adjective would be a comparative, meaning that he was comparing at least two things. If we look at the original paragraph, there is no explicit comparison being made. He does not, for instance, compare digital devices to paper books. So, if the student were to revise the phrase to include a comparative, he would need to make other changes in the paragraph to make the items of comparison explicit. Something like, nowadays, people have new technologies which can support children to increase their learning, so digital devices have greater influence on children than the paper books of the past. Now, whichever revision the student ultimately decides on, changes to the surrounding text are required. So, as always, remember that this is a tool that requires you to pay attention and make choices. It is not always simple, but as you have seen, this student would have been able to make some revisions to address several issues identified in my feedback, likely improving the clarity of the student's ideas and improving his grade on this assignment. Instead of going through the final highlighted word choice, good, I will finish the video here and leave you to practice using word and phrase to help this student make a more appropriate word choice. I hope you have found this video useful, and I look forward to hearing about how you use word and phrase, what successes you find, and what challenges you encounter. Please let me know. Happy exploring!